for the first time since I joined the podcast in mid-2020, there is a championship defeat for Limerick to look back on, to discuss. Clare 124, Limerick 220 in the two Gaelic grounds. I don't really know where to start, Matt. Limerick didn't perform to their best. That's fair to say. Clare performed very near, if at their best. There's been a lot of talk about Limerick in the meantime, half writing them off. But when you really take a close look at the game, you know, Limerick were within a point of getting a draw, 2 points from a win. They lost their best defender. They lost arguably their best player. Didn't perform anywhere near their levels, and were still within a point of Clare. So I don't think the doom and gloom that has surrounded the result or the aura is gone, but it's not very rosy at the moment. There are definitely some issues. I suppose, what was your initial take from the game?
Well, seeing that was the first defeat we have since you joined the podcast, I wonder, should we not talk about hurling at all this week?
No. We'll go through.
Yeah, look, we've got to face facts, Jack. You're right there in your summary. Like it was you had Clare at their optimum, and you had Limerick at Limerick certainly below par, Jack. And you had the other factors that played into it: the loss of Sean Finn and the loss of Cian Lynch. But you must remember that over the last 2 years, and particularly last year, the county that came nearest to inflicting a defeat on Limerick were Clare. They drew with them in the final round of the round robins in round robin in Innis last year, and then drew with them in the Munster final, and Limerick needed extra time. So I suppose you could say it was their turn. And, we lost by a point, and I think that's maybe too simplistic of an analysis of it, because you cannot fully parse or analyse the game without factoring in 3 absolutely incredible saves by Nicky Quaid. The one from Tony Kelly, after about 20 minutes. The one from Peter Duggan, which he deflected over the bar on the stroke of half time, and the one towards the end there when the shot from Shanagar. But you know, you can counteract that with the argument, Jack, the fantastic save that Quilligan made from Seamus Flanagan after 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And, you know, in those early exchanges, Clare hit the first 3 points. During that same spell, Jack, Limerick had that save from Seamus Flanagan, and twice, Jack, hit the ball into the goalkeeper's hand. So instead of being 3 points down, we could easily have been 1-2 up. So, you know, a classical example of the small margins. But looking at it overall, Jack, and looking at Limerick's 2 performances to date, this is not the Limerick we are accustomed to. They certainly haven't found the rhythm. They haven't even found the level of rhythm that they showed in the league semi-final and final. It has been a below par performance on both days by Limerick. But if there's one good thing out of it, Jack, there's maybe 2 good things out of it. First of all, we're not out of the championship by any manner or means. And secondly, Limerick have 3 weeks to get it right. And that's a dangerous amount of time to be given to John Kiley and Paul Kinnerk.
Oh, definitely.
They certainly will, you know, if there are answers to be found, they will come up with them.
Yeah, and they've done it. They've done it in the past. You know, you had that loss against Clare in 18, and you responded by winning the All Ireland. You know, and then the loss in 19 to Tipperary. You were 2 weeks later, they hammered Tipperary in the Munster final, and then obviously losing to Kilkenny. The response didn't come till the following year, but they won 13 competitive games. So they have bounced back. There's few I'd trust more than John and Paul and Alan and Donald, all those, to get the job done. And look, might have been a bit of complacency. A lot of these boys will have forgotten what losing was, what it felt to lose. Might just needed that, reminding of how enjoyable it is to win, I suppose, and how difficult it is to take a loss.
Yeah, but on the other side of the coin, Jack, you have to look. They're not robots. They have been on the road at the very top level for definitely 5. You could even stretch it into 2017, 6 years, which, by any stretch of the imagination is absolutely simply phenomenal.
Yeah.
And like you were defending a record going back 4 years. You hadn't lost in the Munster Championship, Jack. How many times has that happened before? Not very often. It happened, like Cork have done 5 in a row on 3 occasions, and they were in the days of the knockouts.
Yeah, there's a long time ago.
It's a long, and it's not a valid comparison. But like in the cut and thrust of Munster hurling now, and in the cut and thrust of the round robin series, which is dog eat dog, to go 4 years unbeaten, Jack, is simply phenomenal. And to a certain degree, there may be a sense of relief within the camp now, and that there will be a new focus. And as I said, I have the utmost faith on John Kiely, Paul Kinnerk, and that management team. That they will bang heads together and come up with a response.
Yeah, even talking to John afterwards, and you were there, obviously there was no hiding the disappointment and the hurt from John, but there was some sort of sense of, not relief, but a small pressure had been lifted, and that the team was being doubted. And I think they, as much as they enjoy being favourites and they live up to it, I think sometimes it's nice to prove people wrong instead of proving them right all the time, if you follow me. And now they've a huge opportunity to do just that against Tipperary team that, obviously played extremely well in the first round against Clare. And we'll know more when we talk next week about Tipperary, and they'll obviously have played Cork and things. But did you get that sense from John that, their backs are going to be to the wall for the next 3 weeks, and that they'll enjoy this break and coming out then with renewed energy and vigor, I suppose?
Yeah, because, it's been a very, very long campaign for Limerick so far. You must remember that they had 2 more games than Clare played in the league.
Yeah.
And the league morphed straight into the championship. I think he'll be absolutely delighted with the 3-week break.
Yeah,
and it'll be a glorious chance to recalibrate. If you were to say we were getting a defeat, we were going to be suffer a defeat, it was probably the right time to do it when you had plenty of time to recover after it.
Yeah, because if it had happened against Waterford, Clare would have smelled blood, and I suppose they smelled blood from the performance in Thurles that first day. And to be fair, you have to give credit to Clare, Matt, because as much and all as Limerick lost, Clare won the game.
Absolutely, and I in the context of doing the preview for our newspaper for the Cork Tipperary game at the weekend, I was just thinking Liam Cahill can be very, very pleased with what with his team registering 522, but he has grounds to be worried, and serious grounds to be worried, with the concession to Clare of 323 in the same game. That 323 would win most games, Jack. So
yeah.
It was one of those games that was hard to make a judgment on. But the only thing about it, it fired up Clare for the simple reason that, like, Clare came into the Gaelic grounds last Saturday evening, Jack, with that championship on the line.
Yeah, and
and
they brought. I suppose they're now probably favourites in a lot of people's eyes, and I suppose that's the beauty of the round robin, that one good performance can completely change the narrative, as can one bad
Yeah.
performance. But you
But,
do get the impression.
but before we play Clare, there are a few things going to happen, which may have an impact on it, Jack. First of all, you're going to have Cork and Tip this weekend, and you're going to have Clare and Waterford next weekend.
Yeah.
It's not as if the championship has gone into a hiatus like for 3 weeks. It's not. We have a game this week and we have a game next week.
You'll know the landscape a lot more, and obviously,
absolutely,
Clare will be finished by the time Limerick play Cork, and if Waterford don't beat Clare, they'll be gone as well. So Limerick will know more. But looking at Tipperary,
if Waterford don't beat Clare, they're gone anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So even though they'll be playing Tip in the final round, it won't make any bearing on Limerick. But there is definitely a sense of when teams play Limerick, it's their All-Ireland final. The Waterford team in Thurles wasn't there last Sunday in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They weren't related to each other. The 5-22 that Tip got, I'm sure if Clare defended like they did on Saturday against Tip, they wouldn't have got near that mark, So there is a sense of that when you're facing Tipperary, that will be looking for an improved performance from the one that was so comfortable against Clare for large parts of it. So it will be very, very difficult for Limerick, regardless if they beat Clare or not, or the loss. That everyone brings their A game for Limerick.
Oh yeah, look, there doesn't a doubt at all about that, Jack. But that comes with the territory of being champions.
Yeah,
and it's something you have got to expect. But it's something that Limerick have managed very well heretofore.
Yeah,
they have the last 2 Sundays of the last 2 weekends possibly not as good as they had done it in the past. And there's an awful lot to work on, and as I said again, I'd be quite confident that the shortcomings, some of the shortcomings that we saw in both games, like they call a spade, like there was passes not being completed and all that sort of thing, which is totally on Limerick-like. And, ball not going to hand when it should go to hand and all that sort of thing. Limerick normally don't do that. I think that will all be rectified. And, I'm still angry, Jack. I was very angry last week over some of the absolute tripe that was written and spoken about elements of Limerick's discipline. And it has continued to accept, not to the same level, but to a certain degree this year. And it's coming from people that should know better. And I'd say to them, go away and shut up once and for all.
Yeah.
There is no basis at all whatsoever to some of the stuff that has been written and spoken about. And in many cases, the opposition hasn't been even mentioned, as if they had just descended from heaven, angels just descended from heaven.
Yeah, there is definitely a narrative around Limerick, and
Jack, it's gone too far, and like the pre-championship narrative, which John Kiley had to nail, that had gone too far as well. But now there's a different route to follow.
Yeah, there's definitely a narrative around Limerick, and it's not very fair a lot of the time. It's a physical game, and both teams brought a huge physicality. I will say that to the game, and maybe Clare's physicality contributed to Limerick's loss, because the players did seem a bit tired. And obviously we don't know what it's like to play an inter-county game for 70 minutes. Obviously it's huge levels, but maybe the 3-week break, as you said, is coming at the perfect time for Limerick, because some of the bigger players just haven't performed like we know they can, and maybe they haven't been afforded, and Clare had their matchups right, and they kept certain players very quiet, but look, we've 3 weeks now anyway, Matt, to get things right. But what I will say on the game. You mentioned Nicky Quaid, and those 3 saves were incredible. And then I think William O'Donoghue and Tom Morrissey were 2 more that really stood out for me, that just
Absolutely.
gave everything from the first whistle to the very last, and almost single-handedly brought Limerick to the finish line.
They did, and William O'Donoghue was absolutely immense. And like, there's a question mark surrounding the Clare goal. I had a call from a very irate Limerick fan yesterday, pointing out that you know, that Peter Duggan, before he got possession, had committed a foul, a clear foul. Now, I wasn't in a position to argue it, but I just saw a fleeting, just a fleeting shot at it on Sunday night, and I didn't make a judgment, but as I said, it you know, there's a question mark, definitely, I suppose. And but getting back to William O'Donoghue was absolutely, and Tom Morrissey, they you know, they were similar. I would argue it was William O'Donoghue's best game ever for Limerick, nearly. He's had many good games. He's had many good games, but I thought he was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, I remember against Tipperary in the rain in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in 2020, he was phenomenally good against Noel McGrath. But I just thought he led from the front, and Tom Morrissey then tipped him with a couple of scores. It always a willing outlet and worked so hard, which, you know, is standard for Tom. But goes under the radar so much.
Tom is such an incredible. He has such, you know, he's such incredible stamina, and you know what he's prepared to do for the team. Like Tom Morrissey is prepared to, you know, walk blades, do anything for the team. You know, go through iron walls, even. You know, it's just simply incredible. But yeah, look, getting back to where we started, Jack. I think you know, over the next 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks now, there'll be a lot of soul searching done, a lot of analysis done, a lot of honest talk, which is a characteristic of this team, and we'll see a different performance against Tipperary. And I just heard before I came on there now that John Kiley, speaking at the Dylan Quirk launch yesterday, indicated that the signs are that Cian Lynch will be fit to face Tipperary. There is no news on Sean Finn yet. It may emerge later today, but we wish the 2 lads the very, very best of luck in their recovery.
Oh yeah, 100%. It definitely seems more positive for Cian than Sean. There's obviously brilliant replacements there with Mike Casey and Rich English, but Sean Finn is the best defender in the game. So hopefully he'll be right for Tipperary, or just maybe a bit further, maybe Cork, or hopefully there's a Munster final for Limerick for the 5th year in a row. We're still a bit greedy, even after the loss to Clare. But again, you wouldn't want anyone else in this situation, only the Limerick hurlers trying to regroup, because, you know, they've shown so many times in recent years that they're more than capable of doing just that.